Assalamu alaikum. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Rabbi zidni ilma. How is everyone? Hope that everyone is well, enjoying your learning, not worried, isn't it? Okay, today, as per my planning, my promise, we are going to discuss May-June 2023, paper 2-1. And as you all know, it's computer science, paper 2, algorithms, programming, and logic. It's 1 hour 45 minutes paper. You have to answer on the question paper. No additional materials are needed. Follow the instructions. You have to answer all the questions. You use a black or a dark blue pen. You may use an HB pencil in order to make a diagram, in order to draw any diagram. You have to write your name, center number, and candidate number in the boxes given at the top of the page. Write your answer to each question in the space which is provided to you. Do not use an erasable pen or correction fluid, please. Do not write on any barcodes. Calculators should not be used in this paper, so please do not carry the calculators with you. The paper is of 75 marks. The marks are written at the end of each question or the end of each part question, and no marks will be awarded for using brand names. Please be cautious, be very attentive whenever you are answering your questions. Question number 1. What descriptions of stages in the program development life cycle are shown? Draw one line to link each description to its most appropriate program development life cycle stage. Not all program development life cycle stages will be used. Now be very cautious. We have 4 stages: analysis, coding, design, evaluation, and testing. And definitely you can see for yourself, analysis, coding, design, and testing are a part. Evaluation isn't. Now on the left-hand side, develop an algorithm to solve the problem using structure diagrams, flowcharts, or pseudocode. That is your design. So you simply draw a line to score 1. Detect and fix the errors in the program. Definitely we have the testing phase. Identify the problems and its requirements. That is the first one, and that is analysis. And then write and implement the instructions to solve the problem. And that is for coding. So in this manner, just being very cautious, you can easily identify the 4 stages, and you can note down and write down their proper definition. You can connect the words, the terminologies with the correct definitions also, with the correct descriptions also. B part. Identify 3 of the component parts after the problem has been decomposed. Now you have decomposed the problem. What will you do? Now there are 3 marks. 1 mark is for naming or describing each component, and maximum 3. For example, if you recall, right now here, all the 4 stages are mentioned, but you need to take any 3. And for example, inputs. What is to be put into the system? Processes, actions which are taken to achieve a result. Outputs, what is taken out of the system. And storage, what needs to be kept for future use. So a student can mention any of these 3 I can say names, and you will be able to score with a very short description, so you can easily score the marks as well. Okay, if you have written this input process word, or if you have described it, they both will be considered as valid answers. Question number 2. Tick one box to show the name of the data structure used to store a collection of data of the same data type. Now, there are 4 options: array, constant, function, and variable. Definitely, I mean, being a person who has been learning for so long, you can easily identify that constants and variables are not falling in this category, and function isn't. So the only viable option is array, and you can simply tick on this one to score 1 out of 1. See, isn't it easy? Collection of data of the same data type. Same data type means it is an array. By the way, if you have any query regarding constants, variables, or functions, so there are videos for this. You can watch them, and your concept will be clear. Question number 3. Describe what is meant by data validation. And see, it's a 2-mark question. So if you have to describe it in this manner. Validation is an automated check carried out by a computer. Or you can say validation is a check performed automatically by the computer. That is also a correct definition, but that will give you 1 mark only. Since it's a 2 mark question, so you have to write down to make sure that the data entered is sensible, to make sure that the data entered is acceptable, to make sure that the data entered is reasonable. So in order to score 2 out of 2, you have to write down the definition along with why. Like what is the purpose of validation? It's ensuring that the data that is being entered is sensible or acceptable or reasonable. Isn't it easy? Okay, B part. A validation check is used to make sure that any value that is input is an integer between 30 and 200 inclusive. Give one example of each type of test data to check that the validation check is working as intended. Each example of test data must be different. Give a reason for each of your choices of test data. Now, this is actually, now pay attention to the keywords. Integer between 300 and 200 inclusive. Now, here they're asking about the choices of normal test data, abnormal test data, and extreme test data with the right reasons. So definitely, what are going to be the right options? For normal, yes, 75 is what is written here as an example. Can some students write some other example for that also? Like Ali, what comes to your mind? For example, this is the value given to you, integer between 330 and 200 inclusive. So can a student write 100? Will it be in the category of normal? Yes, exactly. So any value which is within the range is going to be treated as normal value. And but reason is the data lies within the required range and should be accepted. The data is within the range and should be accepted. Abnormal, any value that is wrong and should be rejected. So if a student wrote 60, that's perfectly okay. And the student wrote minus 50, that's perfectly okay. Another student wrote 1, that is perfectly okay. All these are perfect answers because they all are abnormal values which should be rejected. Extreme, 200. The highest value in the required range that again should be accepted. By the way, is 200 the only extreme value or can we think of any other value also? That's great. Correct, Ali. It can be 30 also because it's dealing with 30 and 200 inclusive. And in this manner, if you have paid attention, if you have recalled your test data, can easily score 6 out of 6. But one caution is like maybe in your paper, they can just use the word test data and they may ask you to think of the name. So in that situation, you need to know normal, abnormal, extreme. By the way, are these the only ones or is there any other one also? Excellent, Ahmed. It's basically boundary. That's great. Another question, for example, if I ask you which validation check, like maybe they may have asked you which validation check is described in is here in part B. So what will be your answer then? Range check, excellent. So this is how you can get the questions. And if you have any query, again, there is a video that is dealing with validation verification. So you can watch it and have the concept clear also. Let's move on to the next question. If you have no query, then let's move on to the next question. Question number 4. Explain the purpose of the library routines, div and round. Now, by the way, library routines, I hope that we all know that what are library routines, the functions that are ready-made available to me, and I'm using them just to make my life a little easy. My programming is going to be a little easy. Div, as the name implies, it's going to be giving you to perform integer division, meaning only the whole number part of the answer is retained. And you can give an example also, like for example, div 9, 4, then equals to 2. So 4 is dividing 9, and you can see 4 2s is 8. That is why 2 is going to be the answer for div. By the way, although they have not questioned about mod, but thank you very much, Ali, for raising this question. So you can even get a question that deals with div and mod to be, you can say, defined with examples also. They may talk about one example to ask about what is the result for div and what is the result for mod. So questions can be in different ways, but you need to practice everything well. You need to remember each and everything well, so you are able to answer. So div and mod, I guess it's clear to all of us. Now, yes, exactly. Although mod is not being asked, but since div and mod normally are asked together, that's why I have revised it here. Round. To return a value rounded to a specified number of digits or decimal places, the result will either be rounded to the next highest or the next lowest value, depending on whether the value of the preceding digit is greater than or equal to 5 or less than 5. It's the same. The way you use round normally, the situation is the same. Example of round is going to be round 4.56, 1. So here you are asking the round function to round the value of 4.56 to one place, and that is why the result will be 4.6. So you can see 1 mark is for, like you can see, if you have written 2 valid points for each of the 2 library routines, you can easily score 4 out of 4. But your practice should be exceptionally well, okay? Question number 5. An algorithm has been written in pseudocode to allow some numbers to be input. Some numbers, all the positive numbers that are input are totaled, and this total is output at the end. An input of 0 is going to stop the algorithm. Now, it's very simple again. You can see for yourself. By the way, an input of 0 ends the algorithm, stops the algorithm. What comes to your mind? That's great. It's the use of your rogue value. Now, this is your program. Line number 1, exit equals to 1. While exit not equal to 0, do input number. If number less than 0, then total equals to total plus number. Else, if number equal to 0, then exit equals to 1. End if, end if, end if. Now you can see, since we have used if twice, that's why that makes sense that you are going to have first if connected with this end if, second if connected with this end if. So it means that there is going to be a little problem here in this question. Now let's move on. What does it say? Then output, the total value of your number is number. Identify 4 errors in the pseudocode and suggest a correction for each error. Now this is what is given to you. You need to see there are 4 errors. Let's do them one by one. Error 1, line 4, if number less than 0, should have been, since they had asked us to identify all and add all the positive numbers. So definitely if number less than 0 is wrong, so you have identified this error and you have written correction as if number greater than 0. Again, the same as I've taught you. Before you start attempting the paper, the question, please first of all identify all the errors and then start writing them down. Do not start writing down immediately. Even if you are sure, still my suggestion, my can say a sort of a can say a suggestion for you that you better identify the errors first and then go with your answers. Error 2, line number 10. Line number 10, exit equals to 1 and should be corrected as exit equals to 0, because if number equals to 0, then exit should not be 1. Exit is already 1 in the beginning. So it should be converted to the value of 0. Or if any other student has identified line number 1 as exit equals to 1 as an error, and line number 2 while exit not equal to 0 as another error, then the student can write down the correction also in this manner that he can say exit equals to 0 is going to be line number 1, and while exit equals to 0 will be in line number 2. So these both options are correct. A student can identify line 10 as an error and he can mention this here. Exit equals to 1 is an error corrected as exit equals to 0. Or the student can identify line 1 and line 2 as errors, and then but need to remember that then you need to write down the proper correction. If you are not using the right thing, then again you may not get any mark at all. As identified, line number 13, end if. Definitely, I told you in the beginning that while should have an end while, which is missing from here. And definitely I need a loop. And for this reason, I'm not going to change line number 2 at all, but instead I will say line number 13 should not be end if, it should have been end while corrected as line number 13. End if is wrong, it should be corrected as end while. Error 4 is in line number 14. The total value of your numbers is not number. The total value of numbers is total. So it's still, in this manner, you can write down, you can easily score 4 out of 4 if you have identified the 4 errors properly and you have written the corrected answers. And just for the sake of making you understand, there is a correct algorithm also written for you. X equals to 1, the same. According to the example that we have mentioned, line number 4, if number greater than 0. Line number 10, exit equals to 0. Line number 13, end while. Line number 14, output with the total, not with the variable number. Clear? Understood clearly? Now let's move on to the B part. Describe how could you change the corrected algorithm to record and output how many positive numbers have been included in the final total. You do not need to rewrite the algorithm. Now be cautious. This is the trick. Here they want the student to describe, not to write. Now, since let's see the marks. The question is of 4 marks. It means that they want me to write down 4 valid points, and that will be 1 mark per mark point, maximum 4. Initialize a new counting variable. If you say counting, that will be great because you can see for yourself, this is the concept of counting being used here. Initialize a new counting variable, count equals to 0. Now, along with that, you have to insert a counting statement between lines 5 and 7, count equal to count plus 1, just to count that how many of the values are meeting the criteria, how many of the numbers being entered are positive numbers. And then we have to work for another output and add a new output after the loop, after line number 13, at the end of the program, and that will be output count, for example. So just an example, a student can write count, a student can write positive, a student can use any variable, but be cautious. If you have used positive as a variable initialized in the beginning, then you have to keep on using the same positive variable throughout your whole description. Fine, but be very, very cautious whenever you are answering your questions, and inshallah you will be able to score. So here in this manner, you can just easily score by identifying the locations where those values will be, those lines will be added, those initializing or counting or output, whichever you have identified correctly, and then you will score easily. Fine. Now, question number 6. State 2 features that should be included to create a maintainable program. See, here they are asking about what should you include to make your program more, can say, appealing, a better one, a maintainable one. Give a reason why each feature should be used. Now, something similar to this one, when we have discussed in the class also, and we keep on doing whenever we work on programming, whenever we work on pseudocode writing, there are certain things which we have been discussing repeatedly. So 1 mark for each feature, maximum 2, 1 mark for each accompanying reason, maximum 2. For example, first one, meaningful identifiers. Identifiers means a variable, a constant, an array, whatever. They all should have meaningful names. Just by looking at those, you can identify their purpose. Like if you say again, I'm repeating ABC, they do not make any sense. I'm not clear that what is A holding, what is B holding, what is C holding. But on the contrary, if I have a variable by the name total, or if I have a variable by the name first number, then they are making the concept more clearer. They're making the concept clearer. So I'll definitely go for meaningful identifiers. I hope it's clear. So writing down the meaningful identifiers with the right description will give me 2. Second one, use of comments. Okay, not those comments as we give to each other. And here they say to annotate each section of a program so that a programmer can find specific sections so that the programmer knows the purpose of that section. He knows what is the purpose. Just to, like for example, you have a comment inserted for the initializing phase. You have a comment written for the declarations. So in this manner, you can easily score your marks if you have identified the right place to place your comments. Although they have asked two features, but just for the sake, maybe some student has identified procedures and functions, a very important one, to make programs modular and easier to update and add functionality. Definitely, we are going to make procedures and functions to make our programs work better, to make our programs work easier, isn't it? Yes? Okay, now. Jazakallah khairan Kasira for being a part of the learning journey. We are going to be back, inshallah, after a short time interval, and so that you are going to energize yourselves, and we are going to work on the next part of the questions. Allah Hafiz.